Welcome back to my book nook. Thank you for joining me. And as you can see, this is my June wrap up. We had an amazing, I had an amazing month reading this month. I actually had 6 5 stars, 4 4 stars, 3 3 stars, and 1 DNF, and we'll get into it. So I wrote a total of 14 books, and the first one I want to talk about is Counting On by Jill Duggar. I did listen to this on Libby. It was really good. This was very hard for me to listen to as a person of faith because the misuse of scripture and the bullying and the things that happened during this, I don't condone at all, obviously. And I remember watching the show and not completely understanding what was going on. If you don't know, it's 19 kids and counting, or 20 kids and counting, whatever. And it was just, I was really shocked. But what I loved about this, and I'm going to talk about another book from that another family member in a little bit, was one that she was able to find a man who, in spite of this, she was able to find a man who let her grow and learn at her own pace, lets her discover what she believes on her own, gives her that space to do that. And I think that's really good, and helps her with that. And I love how she's continuing to grow, and she's using her voice for good. And I just think it was a really positive spin on something that she could have been negative. And yes, it wasn't always pretty, but she did not have a negative mindset. She was always respectful. Even when she dealt with her parents, she dealt with them in a respectful manner, but held her ground and had her boundaries, and is learning that. And so that I applaud, and I do think it was a really good book, and I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 5 stars because here's the deal. I heard somebody say this, and I was like, you are right. If you write a biography, I'm going to give you 5 stars because what right do I have to give you any less when you're talking about your own life? Okay, so yes, that was a 5 star. The next book that I read was As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson, which is the final book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. I have trouble saying that. This book, I did struggle with it. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes. I did struggle because it's been a while since I have read the previous book. So it took me a minute to figure out what was going on, and because they kept referencing the past case, and I just couldn't remember. And so when I figured that out, I was like, okay, no, it kind of got me on board. But Pip is trying to decide what she should do next on her podcast. And in the midst of that, some really strange things start to happen. And as a result, this is the track she follows, and decisions were made. And I am baffled by this. I couldn't believe how this book went. This was a curveball. I mean, you have to read it. It's so good, but I just couldn't believe how it went. And I don't want to give anything away, but decisions were made, and it was just a really interesting ride, and it did button up the series for sure. And it's not the ending I thought it was going to happen, but that's just me. I did give it 5 stars because it was great. I just loved it. It was great. So the next book I read was The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek. I saw this book on TikTok. Somebody recommended it, and I live in the Blue Ridge, Appalachian area. So when they talked about this, I was like, oh, that's cool. And it's about the original bookmobiles, but it also deals with a woman who has a condition. I don't know if it says it on the back, but she is a bookwoman. Let's see. I don't know if it says. She is. Okay. She is, it does say on the back of it, she is blue. Her skin is blue. There are multiple reasons why this happens. I've actually seen people who are blue because they take something silver. I don't remember. But anyways, they take a vitamin that will actually turn them blue, and that was a real thing. But this was because of a medical condition. And because of that, she was actually considered colored. don't know if that's the appropriate term, but that's what she was considered. And so she was segregated and treated, and being a woman, yeah. So this was at that time. So this was a really interesting book because the author is from Kentucky and understands the mentality of the area and some of the ways that they rule their life and do their life and did their life at one point. So, yes, I loved it. Now, this was also, I gotta say, a little milestone for me, as you would say. So when I actually, there's another book I'm going to talk about. It's a sequel to this in a minute, but I actually started listening to that book, and then I realized, wait a minute, that sounds familiar. That looks really familiar. And I looked it up and realized it was the sequel to this book, so I stopped listening to it. But before I stopped listening to it, I got to tell you what happened. I was listening, and I thought, this person's voice sounds familiar. And lo and behold, it was the same narrator from 1,000 Boy Kisses. I'll put that up here. And yeah, so it was her. And she narrated all three of these books. And I've never recognized a narrator's voice before, besides like a person who narrates their own book, obviously. But, like Lauren Graham and Matthew Perry. So yeah, so obviously, other than them. But yeah, I couldn't believe it. I actually recognized this person's voice. I was like, that's a milestone. So yes. So yes, I gave this 5 stars, I believe. I did not write down how many stars I gave it, but I'm pretty sure I gave it 5 stars. If I didn't, I'll put up here what I did. But yeah, love this book, love this series. Definitely recommend you read it. You will learn a lot about the culture and the time. And in the end, she talks about like how she had to do some things with time because it wasn't all in that time period, but she put a lot of things together in one time period that weren't necessarily in time period. But it is a really interesting story and tale and based on real events. So yes. The next book I read, and I know I gave this 5 stars, was The Things We Left Behind by Lucy Score. Now, this is the final book in the Knock 'Em Out series. And as Lucy Score said in her author's note, it was time. This community had been through enough. We had to let them have some peace, okay? They have had murders, they've had mob, they've had kidnappings, they've had all kinds of things, right? So, and this book was no different. It was tumultuous. It was a roller coaster. And I, again, learned something about myself. I loved this book. Like, when I say I love this book, I've liked all the books, but these 2 characters were my favorite. They were my favorite. Now, again, as we know, I've said this before, I skip over the spicy scenes, okay? But oh my gosh, this was, I don't even know how to explain it. I hope I'm not even turning red because these characters, Sloane and Lucen, oh my gosh, they were enemies to lovers. It was second chance romance. It was, and I did not realize how much I loved it, or maybe it was the way she did it in this book. That those tropes were like, oh my gosh, this book, I loved it. I listened to the playlist. It was just so, I don't know, it was my favorite. It was definitely my favorite out of the whole series. I enjoyed the series, and I am so sad to see them leave, but I loved it. I know I gave it 5 stars. And these characters, they did not disappoint. Okay. Oh, actually, it says I gave it 4 stars. Yes, I'm sorry. I gave it 4 stars. And I don't even know why, but whatever. I'll stick with it. I gave it 4 stars. Did I enjoy it? Yes. Oh my gosh, did I love it? Yes, I did. I loved it. And so, yes. So the next book I read was The Bookwoman's Daughter of Troublesome Creek. And yes, that is the sequel to this book. And like I said before, same narrators, 1,000 Boys Kisses. And we visit Troublesome Creek again. And we're telling the story of Honey, who is Cussie's daughter, who is the first one, in the first one. Okay. And it talks about, we get to see all the characters that we saw in the first book. And it's like years later, I think it's like 18 years later, and I was really happy to revisit them again. I loved all these characters. Well, not all of them, but I love most of the characters. I loved how the community came around during this time and how because of people respecting Cussie, how they treated Honey, and she takes into her mother's footsteps and becomes a bookwoman also. And again, you deal with the dynamics of laws that were passed and for people of color. And again, she was blue, not as blue as her mom, but she was blue. Yeah. And so, and the coal mine, I forgot to mention in the other one, yes, we talk about the coal miners and how her grandpa was a coal miner, and a lot of the stuff that happened around that time because it was a coal town. Anyways, regardless, it was just really, there were good parts and there were sad parts, and there were parts that made me laugh, and I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 stars. Okay, so the next book that I listened to, I actually listened to The Bookwoman and The Bookwoman's Daughter. And I also listened to Becoming Free Indeed by Ginger Duggar. Now, this book, she comes from a way different perspective. I think she wrote another book, but I haven't read it. But yeah, she comes from a different perspective in this book. She comes from how she came out of some of the things that she went through, like spiritually. She talks about her spiritual journey more, and how she's learning things about herself and growing. Again, like I said, her and Jill, I don't know anything about anybody else, but again, they were both blessed with men who were so. Ben is as nice as the other one. I can't think of his name right now, but they both, Jeremy, I think his name is. You have to look that up. But regardless, they were both very good about, introducing, showing them things and bringing them out of that, and were very supportive. And I love that for them. They deserve that. Everybody deserves that, but they deserve that for sure. And again, I love their supportiveness. And she talks about her faith and how she's how'd she say, disentangling the misuse of scripture that was in her life. And so it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I loved her perspective. It just made me appreciate more, things. She did talk about some of the things that they didn't understand what was going on. They made jokes, and she realized later on. She talks about a lot of stuff, but I definitely 10 out of 10 recommend, if you're into that thing, you want to know about that. I have this thing about, I love but I love learning about cults and things like that. And I love, Leah Remini's series on Scientology. And it's funny how some of I gotta say, listening to Jill and Ginger's, I think Jill's book more, or maybe watching the video, I don't know, somewhere along the line I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds like Scientology. I love that kind of stuff. I don't love that it happens, but I love listening to it, reading about it, and watching videos and documentaries on it and everything. I have an interest in that. So anyways, but yeah, it was a wild ride, as for sure. And yeah, so loved it. And I gave it again 5 stars, because who am I to tell you your story isn't 5 stars? I am nobody. Okay, so the next book I read was Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. And this is the second in the Red Rising original trilogy. And we once again are with Darrow, and he is doing war games, but he's doing them from a ship. And I honestly can't even tell you what happens in this book. I mean, I could tell you, but I can't. This is so action-packed that I can't even put it on paper. But it was a roller coaster. It's such a good story. I love the characters. I love the premise of this book. If you don't know, it's kind of like Hunger Games. There is a class system, and gold is the highest and red is the lowest. And there's difference in betweens, and you'll have to look it up. They have a whole thing on it. But regardless, really love this. And I just wanted to read, yes. And as I said, our main character, Darrow, he, before I get ahead of myself, he is been recruited in to be a spy in the system and to take down this class system. Okay, so that's where but I just wanted to read one of the quotes to you, because I was like, this is this was everything. Okay. For 700 years, my people have been enslaved without voice, without hope. Now I am their sword, and I do not forgive, I do not forget. So let him lead me into his shuttle. Let him think he owns me. Let him welcome me into his house so that I might burn it down. But then his daughter takes my hand, and I feel all the lies fall heavy on my shoulders. They say a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. They made no mention of the heart. Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, so good. 10 out of 10 recommend this series. I believe this was a 5-star. I can't remember, but yes, I'm almost positive this was a 5-star. So the next book I listened to is Forest Fishing and Forgery by Tanya Capps. Now, these books are like 4 hours long. They're more novellas. They're free on Kindle Unlimited. There's like 25 of them. They're also on, I have them on my Libby. They're little books. I just listen to them. They're kind of fillers for me, but I enjoy them. But I'm also like, this, anyways, this is crazy, right? Okay, so the unrealisticness of this is what gets me sometimes. But yeah, so you're welcome back to normal Kentucky, where nothing is normal. And I tell you that, it is so true. So where it's lake day at the Happy Trails campground at the edge of the Daniel Boone National Park. Okay, and that is the campground that Mae West owns. Now, from the first book, you'll find out that she got this campground, and this girl at least finds 3 bodies in every book. I think if I was her, I don't know if I'd ever leave my house. That woman stumbles on dead bodies like nobody else. Like, that's all she does is find dead bodies. Everywhere she goes, there's a dead body. And she's kind of become like a little amateur sleuth. And there's a little love triangle. And honestly, these are great little filler books. I would not say these are like, the greatest literature in the world. I enjoy them. I enjoy the audiobooks and listening to them. And they are fillers for me. I think I gave it like 4 stars, 3 stars. I give it 3 stars because they're not great, but they're okay. They're okay. It's a great little in between. I think there's like 26 of them. Am I going to continue to listen to them? Yes. Are they like the must reads? Not for me, but that's what it is. Anyways, so I loved it. Like I said, 3 stars. Yeah. So the next couple books I'm going to talk about very briefly because I did a 24-hour challenge. And I suggest that you go watch that video because I worked really hard on that video. I was so proud of myself for that. But during that challenge, I read Vera Wong's Unsolicited Guide to Murders. I don't even remember what I gave this, but I talk more about it in my video. So yes, I enjoyed it. I'm pretty sure I gave it 5 stars. I also read A Court of Frost and Starlight. And this is a novella. Honestly, I think I gave this like 3 stars. Yes, I did. I gave it 3 stars. And the reason being, it wasn't like anything to the story as far as I was concerned. But I do talk about quotes. You're going to have to go look it up. In the book that was like, I even read it to my husband the other night. And he was like, wow. Yeah. And he doesn't even read these books. He has no interest in these books. He was like, but wow. So yeah. So I gave this 3 stars. I kind of felt like they said, hey, write a Christmas book. And she did. Or, and I know people said this, and I'm not saying anything negative about her. She's a great writer, and I enjoy these books. But it was just kind of so-so. As far as I was concerned, it wasn't anything. There was a little bit, but there's no pertinent information. I felt that I could not probably go on to the next book. I don't know. I am going to read the last book published this month, and then we'll see. And I believe that's Nesta's story. I kept saying this is Nesta's story. This is not Nesta's story. Anyways, I also during that time finished Let Them. Now, I want to say I like this book, and this book was perfect for me right now. I have situations in my life where this basically validated my decisions. Okay. I gave it 4 stars. If I was to recommend a book to help with boundaries, which this is kind of like about boundaries, I would say Boundaries. And I'll put that book up here. 10 out of 10 recommend. That is the best book. That book changed my life. This just reinforced what I already knew. And was it helpful? Yes. Did I enjoy it? Yes. It was great. I gave it 4 stars. Okay. So the last book that I read this month is, hold on, I'm trying to grab it. Lessons in Chemistry. Okay. Now, this was a 5-star. This is possibly a 6-star. Okay. No, I'm going to tell you right now, I couldn't put on anything, but this is a 6-star. Okay. And let me tell you why. This book had me just, I couldn't believe what was going on. So it follows 2 chemists in their late 50s, early 60s. And one of them is a woman and one of them is a man. And it follows their relationship. And she is trying to live her life without any apologies. She's just trying to live her life without any apologies, okay? She is not apologizing for what she believes or whatever. Now, I do not agree with everything, obviously. That's okay. I don't have to, okay? First of all, this is a fictional character, okay? Is it based on a real woman? Maybe, but that's besides the point. This book was wonderful. I laughed. I was in utter shock at times at what this character did. This book, I don't even know how to explain it. So I teared up. I knew it was a lit fiction, but it did have quite a dent of romance in it. And I also found out that there's an Apple TV miniseries on this, and I might have to get the service just to watch that because I would love to see that. And I want to be so for real with you. Okay, so I'm going to put up here the other cover, okay? And I learned this from somebody online, and they brought this up, and I can say I totally agree with the author. So Bonnie Garmis, I think I've said this before, but I'm going to say it one more time, does not like this cover. She does not like this cover. And she doesn't think it represents the book. And I absolutely agree it does not. Because when I read Lessons in Chemistry, I always thought this was some spicy novel. I thought they were talking about another type of chemistry, not science chemistry, okay? And a lot of it had to do with this cover. And I was like, oh, it's not really, even though I read spicy books, obviously. But, and I skip over the spice, but I was just like, I don't know. No. This one, I am so sad that it took me this long to pick this up because this is right here. This is the type of book I love. The lit fiction, the historical fiction, or more historical fiction, and with the romance. And I loved every bit of it. And I definitely gave it 5 stars. Okay. And, oh, I'm sorry. The last book I actually read, that was my last book. Yes, definitely least. And I hope, okay, so it was The Surrogate by Frida McFadden. Let me back up. The first Frida McFadden book that I read was Never Lie. And I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is amazing. Loved. This book, however, no, I'm sorry. This could have been a Lifetime movie. I love her books, but this fell so hard for me. You follow a couple named Sam and Abby, and they really want to have a child. And after adoption falls through, they tentatively take an offer that is given to them to have a child. And that's pretty obviously it's a surrogate because that's the name of the book, The Surrogate, right? And I just was like sitting there the whole time going, you people cannot be this naive. You cannot be this naive. And the fact that this went on, I was like, there's no way people are this naive. And it was the twist. Usually, you know how Frida will get you with her twist. I'm telling you what, the twist, I was like, oh, okay. All right. Yeah. All right. And that's it. It wasn't like some groundbreaking thing. Like I said, this was like a Lifetime movie as far as I was concerned. And I gave it 2 stars. Yeah. I gave it 2 stars, which is really low. But I'm going to say this. So, this book, when I was reading it, gave me the idea of doing, so in August, I will be doing a video of reading 5 Fridas in 5 days. Okay, because I can read a Frida in a day. They're pretty short on Kindle, and I can read one a day, I think. So I want to try to do 5 Fridas in 5 days. And then I will have read 11 books, and I'll probably do like a top 10 of those books that I read in a bonus. How's that? So look forward to that video in August. That will be an August video. So, because I've already got my TBR picked out for July, which you should go watch that video, and I'm already in it. I came so close, though, I got to say, I did come very, very close to completing my full TBR, and I do need to talk about my DNF, but the last book I started was actually Finley Donovan is Killing It, and I did not finish that until the 2nd or 3rd of this month, which was like yesterday. So, because it's already July. So I'll be talking about that the next one, but I came very, very close. And I did DNF this book, and it's Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. After reading the Bookwoman's Troublesome Creek and the Bookwoman's Daughter, I felt like this was somewhat repetitive of that. So not exactly, obviously, but I just wasn't in the mood for it, and I'm very much a mood reader, and I just couldn't put myself. I was like, I don't think I'm going to enjoy it. I didn't want to read it if I'm not going to enjoy it. So I did DNF this. I may read it again sometime. I don't know. I don't know. I may or may not. Who knows? It just depends. Somebody suggested this to me, and I read it just because I was I kind of picked it up more being nice. I mean, it's something I would like to read, so I probably will read it, but I don't know when, and I have no future plans at this point to read this. But that's it. So that's it. So that's what we did this month. 14 books. Had a wonderful month. I hope you had a wonderful month. And I have some more videos coming up for you. So I hope you're around, and thank you for watching, and like and subscribe, please. And go check out some of the other videos, the 24-hour challenge, my TBR. Join me on this book journey that we are on, and I hope you have a lovely, lovely day. Alrighty, bye-bye.